Okay, welcome to the weekly meeting, everyone. So we'll start by giving a recap of what's happened over the course of the last week in terms of development. Then we'll mention some things about what's upcoming, and then I'll pass it over to Lutz, and he can give some updates about what's been going on his end of things, so then we can have some questions. So for the majority of what happened last week, it was mainly working on two things, which was referendum-related stuff. So that's related to the referendum process in the entire EOS ecosystem. So just to give a brief description of what the referendum is, it's a process in which proposals for making changes to the EOS system can be put forward. For example, the Constitution will need to go through a referendum process, and people with EOS tokens can there then vote on these proposals. And now the referendum system, the way it's been built, it can actually be used by other projects, not just for EOS. For example, we at Novasphere can use the same referendum system to conduct votes where we can put forward proposals for things that should be happening in Novasphere, and then Atlas coin holders can then use that to voice their opinion on how things should be handled. And other projects can do this as well, so it's a fairly open system that anyone can use. So there's been some updates to what's going on with that. It's getting pretty close to being ready. The main people that are working on interfaces for the referendum software has been us at Novasphere and EOS Nation. And then in terms of the communication software to be able to converse on-chain with people in an easy, transparent manner. That's mainly been us that's been working on that. I've asked around, to my knowledge, none of the other teams are working on this sort of software. So I believe at this point in time, EOS Forum is more than sufficient enough to conduct conversations about this sort of thing, as it gives more or less the same feeling as Reddit. And so that leads me into something else that was recently done, which is now any conversations that happen on Reddit in the subreddit r/EOS actually now gets copied over to the blockchain and is directly available from EOS Forum. So even if you're not a Reddit user and you're an EOS Forum user, you can actually communicate with people that are having discussions on Reddit about EOS through EOS Forum. So the way that works is when you make a comment on EOS Forum, it actually gets added to the EOS blockchain. You are publishing it yourself to the EOS blockchain, or if you post anonymously, we're publishing that to the blockchain for you. And then that comment gets copied over to Reddit automatically by a bot. And then there's a second bot that's currently watching all the posts that are coming in and happening in the EOS subreddit, and all of those posts are getting copied over to the EOS chain. So this creates a very transparent environment, and it makes it a lot easier for people that are already using Reddit as a platform of communication to talk about EOS to move over to EOS Forum. After all, we expect that a lot of the people in r/EOS are EOS token holders and therefore have their own EOS account, which is really all you need to participate on EOS Forum through yourself. Now, even if you don't have an EOS account, you can still participate on EOS Forum through any of the anonymous subs, which do allow you to post anonymously free, and this is a service provided by the team. I guess really the only other thing that was added last week, aside from the referendum stuff and the Reddit stuff, is we did make a small update to allow DTube auto embedding. So what auto embedding is sort of, for example, if you just put a link to, let's say YouTube as an attachment to your post, it will embed the YouTube video into your post, so people don't actually have to click the link. They can just play the video right in your post. So now you can actually do the same with DTube videos. You can just put a link to the DTube video, and people can actually watch the DTube video directly on EOS Forum instead of having to go through that link. Now, what's upcoming in the next, or I guess this week, is some of the stuff that was delayed from last week. That in place there was the Reddit stuff that happened. So this week is mainly going to be focused on working on anonymous identities. So I've talked a lot about this before, but we should start seeing some of the features for anonymous identities get rolled out as soon as Tuesday or Wednesday. So you can expect to see a lot happening with that over the course of this week. And then this really starts to create the first EOS DApp where users can have more or less the exact same features and abilities as EOS token holders, those who have EOS accounts, and they can be interacting with the EOS blockchain itself. And they don't even need to know any of that's happening behind the scenes. They don't need to be a blockchain user. They don't need to know anything about crypto. And it just feels like a natural, normal website. So I think that's really powerful in terms of crypto and onboarding people into the ecosystem is sort of lowering the bar of this learning curve because there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, and the rabbit hole's pretty deep once you start trying to get things figured out in terms of crypto when you're just starting out. So now I'm going to pass it over to Lutz, and he can cover some of the updates of what's been going on his end, and he can get to some of the questions that he's collected, and there might be some other questions after that. So go ahead, Lutz.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I see a lot of progression going on. It's really awesome. I've been personally trying to reach out to other communities. So on the marketing side of things, let's talk about this. Every time I put a link out there, guys, if you want to support it, you retweet it, and you can take the link from the Twitter and you can put it into your own social medias. It could be Facebook. You could use the actual Twitter link. Now, when you do that, it extends our half-life on the social media SEO. So we need to be constantly Twittering and all the social medias are very important, and they need to be done regularly every day. There's two big things I've learned in SEO, which personally I really don't care much about SEO anymore. It's just an improvement on Google's algorithm, and they never give you anything back for it. But all you need are two things. You need good backlinks from websites. And then you need the social media part of it. And if you keep up with those two things, SEO is not a big issue anymore. So that's being eliminated. We have over 100 social media accounts I'm fixing up right now. It's taking a lot of time. I'm also waiting on Mako, which is our designer, or my personal designer. And he's making us some really nice images for all the profiles, and just to make it look really good. So social media side, also you see me creating articles. I see a great niche. I think actually Asphyxia told me about it. What we could do is we could utilize I'm making articles on instructions for other communities. Wallet installs for Pirate. I'm having a lot of things like this, educational material. I call them timeless articles. Because being in the news game for so long, you realize that every time you put out an awesome article, that's yesterday's news already. It's a waste of time. So I mean, they go to it once, they never go to it again. It's a waste of time. But timeless articles are instructional things, resources people go back to all the time. Like when I got to set up an IPFS node, there's this one Steemit article that's awesome, and I always go back to it like a resource. Having that on Novosphere is very powerful, because now we can just indirectly introduce people to our community, our Novosphere project, and they'll stumble upon it themselves while reading the instructions or good articles created by people, or you can do feedback, anything. If there's a project you like EOS Nights, I installed it today. I thought it was a joke, but it's real. It's called EOS Nights, and it's like a little funny game. You could earn drops that are worth a lot, and it's a little gay, because you just watch the guys like hit each other, but from a distance. But it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool game on the blockchain. I urge you guys to not just post things on the Novosphere. In conclusion, but get it out there. Introduce it to people. Give it to somebody. Say, hey, check out this article, right? That introduces them indirectly to Novosphere, which is a great way to get more people on our platform. So that being said, we also have the flyer distribution going on. We got some feedback today. You'll see the pictures in the Meetup channel. There's a lot more pictures than that. I require proof of posting from every distributor. I'm putting ads out to hire more kids from schools all over the place to put these out in their colleges and in their universities and in their libraries and at Starbucks. And if they take the ad and they show me proof, they take the job and they show me proof that they did it, I pay them, and that's basically it. Maybe in the future we could even create a bounty where people could just show us that they posted it in their local shops, and we could throw them in Atmos. We give them some tips for hooking us up, because even if people don't take the flyer, they do look over at it and they do look at it, and they remember, oh, Novosphere, I heard that somewhere, right? And remember, the rule of seven in marketing is somebody has to see something 7 times in order for it to stick in their brain, right? So it's very important just to get out there, even if it doesn't. If it's not a conversion, it doesn't matter. They saw it and it's in their head. So just think about that. Always, just putting our name out there. If you remember back in the day when Madonna said she started out, right? Madonna started writing her name all over walls, right? So people could get used to seeing it. It's just something, it's something to do. Just keep in mind when you're doing things, you could always just say, "Hey, I did it on the Novosphere. I have my stuff over there." And speaking of that, my radio station, I tested it already. I uploaded an Ardor. Did you see that? The Lost Ardor interview. I'm getting tons of feedback on that. It's got over 300 views already, and they all viewed it on the Novosphere because that's why I uploaded it. It's not there. It's not anywhere else. So that's pretty cool. It was actually it actually was the Lost interview. I found it and I was like, oh wow. So there's a lot more going on here. The weekly meetings I'm gonna edit. I have a bumper created, so an intro created, so it sounds more professional on the replays. We're gonna have a roadmap created. Me and Asphyxia talked about it last night, and we'll create a nice roadmap showing you the progression of all my. I mean, if you look at my Trello, Asphyxia, I'm sure he's seen it. It's basically my mind on Trello. So yeah, there's lots of cool projects, lots of ideas that I want to execute, and we could execute them together. We could look at projects together, ideas together. You could input your ideas, give them to me, and we'll edit, and we'll see if it works. I'm totally down for that. There's IP advertising. We have I call it community infiltrations. It's a little funny, but we go out. I go out to communities and I introduce us to them. I have pictures of me and showing that I'm doing that. So there's a lot of cool stuff, but we really need to get out there more. We have something unique. It's a little weird that like Meet.one has all these crappy projects, and they still haven't recognized us. I did reach out to Meet.one a couple weeks ago. I just asked them for an update. They have not replied, so I'm still waiting on that. On another side note, we're going to create a submit a question link on the website and to the dev, and that will be answered weekly during these shows. Setting up the Shoutcast Icecast server for the radio station so that I could link the live link right on Novosphere, and we could stop using this, this alternative I have just temporarily at the moment, or we could keep that going at the same time. That's even more exposure. Let me just take a look here. Okay, so there's a lot of. So let's get to the questions, the community questions, Asphyxia. I mean, is that you guys want more? I could keep talking about the bringing to we can talk about keywords. There's a lot of stuff that's involved in marketing, and you'll see it on my page. But I'll create a page for public consumption so that you guys could work with me. I want to work with everybody, so the community could get involved, and it'll be awesome.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think it would be great to get a public roadmap out there for the marketing so people can see how things are progressing on that end a little more easier. The same way we have the Trello roadmap for development, so people can sort of follow along with development a lot easier without being directly involved in the Discord or constantly watching what's going on the GitHub. So yeah, we can move over to those questions that you have.
Also, with the roadmap, if there's no end to some things that I do. I mean, if by chance that we see some good, traffic coming from the flyers, for example, I mean, it won't end. We'll just keep that going. There's no end to that one project on a roadmap. So I guess we'll keep some open ended. Till we know how successful they are.
Of course, and the development roadmap more or less actually works the same way, which is just because you see, for example, all the things under a certain category marked as completed, that doesn't mean there's not going to be more things added to that category in the future.
Yep, very cool. So let's get to these community question guys, and I urge you guys to ask community questions, even if Swixy is not around. I'm usually here. I think there's a little overlap between when him and I go to sleep. I did notice at 4 a.m. there's not many devs around or no team members around. But ask the question anyway, and we'll get to it. I'll get to it when I wake up. So the first question, Swixy, what does an EOS referendum constitute? I think you actually just spoke about this, but what does an EOS referendum constitute? I've seen many people say that like Rex needs a referendum. I don't know what that means when they say I need that project needs a referendum.
Okay, so first I'll give a brief explanation of what the Rex is. So the Rex is a proposal for EOS about a resource exchange. So the way it works is EOS has resources like CPU and net, and you get those resources from staking your EOS. So the idea here is instead of staking your EOS, for these resources, you can lend these resources to the Rex, and people can then lease those resources from the Rex and basically get access to resources at a cheaper cost. And so what this does is your reward for your reward for lending to the Rex is you receive payment in the form of EOS. So the fees that are collected from the Rex and other fees that are collected by the system, for example, from premium names on EOS, or for example, RAM trading fees. Now, why it was said that the community, or I guess some of the block producers, feel that a referendum should be called for the Rex is because previously there has not been a precedent set about whether block producers have the authority to spend from accounts that are supposed to be considered burned, per se. So, for example, when you're doing RAM trading at the moment, there is a fee associated with that, and the EOS ends up in this RAM trading fee account. And so that, since nobody has technically control over this account, it's supposed to essentially be considered burned. But the current proposal for the Rex talks about having funds that are coming into this account actually be distributed back to those that are lending resources to the Rex. So that's why there's some discussion about putting it to a referendum. And so putting it to a referendum really just means calling for a community vote on whether this change should be implemented or not.
Very cool. So they're asking for a vote, just to simplify it.
Yes, exactly.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I would have never got that. We need a referendum. Who would think that they're asking? We need a vote, guys. All right, very cool. That cleared that up. So in the forum, I see the hashtag and the letter E before every every keyword or thread. What's the why is there? And I noticed it on others, EOS domains that they have a hashtag. Why is that there? And what does the E stand for?
Okay, well, first I'll talk about what the E is for, and then I'll talk about the hashtag is. So I mean, if you're on Reddit and you go to like a sub on Reddit, the sub is r/EOS. So what does the R stand for? Yeah, to be honest with you, I actually have no idea what it stands for. I just always assumed it stood for Reddit. So in our case, the E, I took this on the same principle, and so the E just really stands for EOS. Now, what the hashtag is used for is this is a little technical, but basically, it allows you to change the URL without actually changing the page. So that might sound a little strange, but it sort of just ties into something with web development. So the hashtag isn't really something you should think about too much.
Okay, cool, very cool. Yeah, I look at it a lot because I work with links a lot. So, I could put the .com in some links, and I could put the .com with the hashtag in some links. It actually gives me more options for LSI type stuff. Will a staking system on the new EOS? How will it work?
Okay, so yeah, at some point, implementing Atmos staking on EOS. At this point in time, it's not currently available, but essentially how it'll work is you will stake your Atmos, and this will give you permission to participate in the validation process of the sidechain. So you're required to do two things essentially, which is first thing is to put forward a stake and lock that up in a contract. The same way staking works on the temporary blockchain, sort of. And the second thing that you'd be required to do is run a piece of software either on your computer or some server or something like. And so this works very similarly to how staking used to work on the temporary blockchain. So as far as users need to be concerned, it's not really all that different. Now, in terms of what the staking is actually doing behind the scenes, it's securing and providing validation to the sidechain. And so the sidechain that we're talking about relates to the Atmos D side of things, which is a project wherein we have a sidechain to EOS, and this sidechain allows for anonymity and fungibility to be brought to EOS tokens. And the way we're doing that is we're more or less copying the same scheme that Monero uses. And shout out to the fact that Monero recently just implemented bulletproofs, which will actually be very helpful when we start working more on the sidechain. And so the sidechain will allow EOS assets to benefit from the same privacy that Monero, for example, uses.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't want to move off the chain right now, I think, because they're staking.
Right, but there's one last thing I should clarify, which is, of course, Atmos on EOS will remain fixed at 100 million, and the reward for staking will come from the fees that are generated by the sidechain.
And those fees come just from utilities. So when you use the forum, I mean, it automatically gets paid, gets the fees paid because you post.
So the forum has actually not. Well, the forum itself, the way it works, has nothing to do with the sidechain. Where one source of the fees, for example, is when you want to move an asset from EOS to the sidechain, there is a fee associated with that. And likewise, when you want to move from the EOS, the main chain, there's a fee associated with that. So very similarly to how there are fees associated with ramp trading EOS. So fees that are generated on the sidechain will go back to those that are staking.
Cool. This seems like a very general question. What benefits do the users get when using Novosphere as opposed to using something like Reddit? And I'm guessing like immutability, stuff like that.
Yeah, so the obvious answer to that is immutability, censorship resistance, and the ability to self-host content. So, I mean, we've seen it already before, which there's a lot of fringe subreddits on Reddit and as like social media in general, where people get banned all the time for just holding certain political standpoints, and we see rules that are selectively enforced. And this really cripples freedom of speech. And so, what EOS4 is built around is this idea of self-hosting and being able to host your own version of it very easily with your own policy. So, we already released some software recently called EOSform Proxy, which allows you to set up your own version of EOSform very easily with just a few settings changed, which, for example, will allow you to moderate content on the forum and sort of allow you to run the forum the way you see fit. So it's one way that people can easily get their own community set up on the forum. But yeah, that's the main, I think, selling point of ES Forum is the immutability aspect of it and the censorship resistance. There's no centralized moderating system, so no one can really silence you. Moderation is entirely opt-in. So
Right. So basically, what I'm planning to do is I'm going to create Atmosphere Radio, and I want just the Atmosphere Radio thread to show. So what I could do is I could ban the rest, right, or just block the rest, and just show that one thread on my website, right?
Right. So you can, for example, just set the only sub available to your Atmosphere Radio sub. You could set the default sub to that, so when people go to the page, that's all they see. And then any important threads that you have, you can just pin to the top of that subreddit through the moderation features.
Yeah, very cool. I was planning on actually doing it live, but I think we should just separate that from today's show, and we'll do like one educational training type show just to show people how to edit. I'll set it up on Twitch. People can watch it as you tell me how to do it. And I think that'll be really educational for people to do it themselves.
Yeah, sure.
When creating my own Nodosphere, oh wait, hold on. Oh yeah, so we're not going to do that anymore. That was my question. Is it possible in the future to add? So when you go to a lot of these other like Meet.one, they have that whole wallet function where you could add CPU and such. Can we add CPU right from Novosphere, or is it possible in the future to have like a more utility to the wallet side of things?
I mean, it's possible, but Novosphere isn't trying to be a wallet for EOS, so I don't feel that we should start taking that burden upon ourselves, because then it forces us to focus on things that really aren't at the importance of the project. So I think it's better if, for example, the wallet software focuses on being a wallet, and we focus on being a dApp, which is what we're trying to do.
Right. It's that would just what I always think about, and in business today, like if you own a bakery, I mean, you're going to do okay, but you're going to do better if it's not just a bakery. If it's a gelato store, a sandwich shop, a soup shop, and a bakery, you're obviously going to do a lot better. But yeah, I agree. That's definitely something way down the line if we wanted to do that. Number 8, even considered. Have you ever considered adding levels to people's name, like on Bitcoin Talk, where there's heroes and legends and all those titles?
I don't think it's a useful metric, and I think it actually encourages spamming. So, for example, if we look at Bitcoin Talk, we not only spam posts and participate in sort of mindless discussion. And when I say mindless discussion, I mean they essentially aren't spamming. They are saying certain things, but it's mindless drivel in the sense that they're really only posting to get their post count up, and so that they can increase the rank on the account. And that has to do with sort of certain permissions that you have on Bitcoin Talk. Like, for example, as a newbie, you can't post images. And then I think once you become a full member, which takes about, 1 to 2 months to do, you can then set an avatar, and then you have certain signature rules at that point in time. And these higher level accounts can then be signature campaigns that go on Bitcoin Talk and earn more money, and sell for more money on Bitcoin Talk, and I think it just creates a bad environment and a
Yeah,
bad market, and
yeah.
sort of encourages mindless posting and buying and selling of accounts. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
personally a good idea.
I agree. And it encourages hacking accounts, and I agree.
Now
Hold on, I got to
well, that said, it is open source software. So, for example, if someone wants to implement that, they're more than welcome to.
Hold on, I got to do a rebirth on my EOS Nights. Okay, done. You got to try it out, man. I thought it was a joke, but EOS Nights is pretty fun. So let's go to the next one here. Who owns the EOS-forum.org? And what would happen if it were to be taken down?
So we're talking about the domain, right?
Yeah, the actual domain name.
Okay, so the domain is owned by the Novosphere team. If it were to go down, for example, I mean, it's very easy to self-host the site, so it could easily go up on another domain. All the code is open source, it's all public, and the way EOS Forum actually works is it's hosted entirely from GitHub pages, so even without a domain, we could actually continue to host it from just GitHub pages in general. Now, if GitHub pages, let's say, takes us down as well, okay, well, that's still no problem, because we can actually still host the website entirely from IPFS. So, it's not really too much of a problem if the domain, let's say, gets seized or goes down or anything like that.
Right, very cool. Yeah, guys, and it's IPFS is a whole different network, a whole different environment. They can't block it. The only way to see stuff on that network is to create a gateway from the regular internet that you guys use daily. So if you go to a certain domain like IPFS.io, gateway, that's the gateway to get into the IPFS network. If you didn't want to use that, you could start your own node, which is very easy. It's not that bad, and you'd be able to see everything on IPFS without having to use any DNS or does it use TCP/IP? No. What am I trying to say here?
I'm sorry. What was your question? I was helping someone with something.
That's all right. So I was just saying, in the future, when we have more IPFS tools, maybe even people will be able to start their own nodes easily, and then they'll be able to see everything on IPFS without having to use a gateway.
Yeah, I think IPFS is making some really good development. We're really seeing a big push, for example, from Brave, which is getting more and more popular as a browser, which has native IPFS integration into it. So I think as more browsers start to adopt this as a standard, it'll be a lot easier to integrate IPFS into other projects, and it can start to become really a standard part of the web in general.
Have you ever thought of copying Bitcoin Talk? So that there's no censorship there?
What do you mean by that? There's censorship that happens all the time on Bitcoin Talk.
Oh, no, I mean like the way you did Reddit. With the copying over, so nothing ever gets deleted.
I don't really think there's any point in copying Bitcoin Talk. I mean, at this point in time, I think Bitcoin Talk has devolved to the point of where nobody really uses it for productive discussions anymore.
I personally think we should just copy over the Satoshi, the actual original Satoshi posts. So those don't ever get lost, and then they could take down Bitcoin Talk for So what criteria does a post need to have to get to the top of the popular list?
So the way sorting works on EOS Forum is it's based off two metrics, which is how long has it been since the post was posted, and how many upvotes does it have. So the scoring mechanism sort of has basically the longer your post exists, it starts to decay more in score, and you can reduce decay by through upvotes of the post. So those upvotes can either come from just a regular free upvote, or they can be Atmos-based upvotes, or whatever. So those are the two factors that really tie into it: is time since you've posted, and how many upvotes does it have.
That's a fantastic. Also, in parallel, that's how the SEO, the social media SEO works. So specifically, just for social media posts on Twitter and stuff, it works the same way. That's why you have to keep it up with likes and hearts. It works the same way. So you could get the rank juice. I'm not sure if that came out right, but so
yeah, the algorithm works fairly similarly to Reddit. I can't take credit for the algorithm that we're using. I think it's actually the same algorithm that HackerNoon uses for how they score posts, but it's been modified slightly to fit our current needs. But yeah.
I noticed also there's a nice search page. So once I found the search page, I was able to see all the keywords, and you can see how many threads there's a nice amount of threads there. Is there a way to get to that search from the front page? And what happens if the search reaches like 2 million keywords? How are we going to need a search for the search?
So that page is actually still a work in progress yet. So the reason you can't actually find it from like a normal page, like from the home page or anything like that, is because it is still a work in progress. So the way that'll work is it'll be very similarly to how it works on Reddit. So for example, you can type a topic that you're interested in, and it'll recommend you some of the subs that exist already, or maybe if there's no sub, you just go and create your own. So you can start your own discussions, and it'll allow you to search for content that is within the post body itself. So, for example, maybe a content was a hashtag, but a few keywords that a person said in a post, you can be able to search through this page. So that page is actually still a work in progress, which is why it's like that currently. So once it's ready, it'll be added to the main interface.
It was a really cool page though. When I got to it, it was like, nice, And then you start realizing you could start making your own threads from there, and then if I create a thread on it, do I have like special permissions over other people, or anybody could just post in that thread?
No, you can go to any sub. So after e/, you can put whatever you want. You can do e/loots. You can do e/anon-loots. You can do whatever you want, and you can start posting right there. You don't have any special permissions just because you were the first person to do that. What you can do, however, is you can create a moderation policy, and then people can opt into your moderation policy. So. That's one way to go about things, but you do not have any special permissions just for being the first ones there. I mean, we've already seen this to be a problem, for example, on Reddit, where let's say someone gets the first, they're the first person to create a certain sub. They retain ownership of that sub, and Bitcoin's a really interesting case because really nobody owns the brand Bitcoin, right? So when you think about who the moderators are of r/Bitcoin, it's like, okay, well, who chose these guys to be the moderators, right? Nobody, right? They were just there first. So, right. That's something to take into consideration.
Right. That's like Roger Ver and Bitcoin.com. He got the domain name first.
I'm actually pretty sure he didn't. I think he actually bought the domain name from the person who had it first, or either that or there was some legal dispute over who owned it or something like that. But yeah, I mean, more or less the same thing. Yeah.
Cool, man. Very cool. So, and keep in mind, guys, if you have other favorite coins, and I'm sure you do, you could create a thread for them and say, listen, guys, put your updates over here. So, you're in a whole different community now. It's to their advantage to do it. Because in marketing, you got to put yourself all over the place. There's really no, you definitely have to get everywhere, and it doesn't unless it's like a porn site. It's not going to hurt you. How do smart contracts tie into all this?
In what regard?
Like when you're creating a post, and how does Novosphere work with smart contracts? Is it does it create smart contracts in the background? And I ask this because I've seen other projects mentioning it.
So there's Novosphere makes use. Okay, so the forum makes use of two smart contracts at this point in time. So it makes use of one contract which lets you do the posting, and it makes use of another contract which is the actual Novosphere DB contract, which manages the upvoting. but there is like a broader aspect of how smart contracts ties into the overall project. I mean, it plays a big part in how the staking system will work in the future and how the sidechain validation will work and that sort of thing. But in terms of posting, it's not creating any new contracts or anything like that. It's really just interacting with existing contracts.
Very cool, very cool. So I was going through the forum, right, and I was thinking it would be really cool if we could just right click on like say Reddit, the Reddit thread. If we were able to just right click and just censor that, so we don't have to see it anymore. Is that possible?
So the way Reddit deals with this is they have what's called essentially like the home sub, and the home sub only shows you posts. It's sort of like r/all or like e/all in the case of EOSform, but instead of showing you every subreddit that where posts are going on, it only shows you the subreddits that you're subscribed to, and so that's probably going to get implemented some point this week. So e/all will still probably have all the Reddit posts, but the default home sub, when you just go onto EOSform by default, will take you to this home sub, which will only show you content from subs that you're subscribed to. So if you want to stop seeing content from the Reddit sub, which is anon-r-eos, you can just unsubscribe from that, and it'll stop showing up in your feed.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. So I think I still. Oh, okay. A chat. It would be really cool if we could directly chat with each other, and if you were able to implement that in a chat box on the site. Is that possible? And how anonymous would that be?
Well, it's possible, but what do you mean by anonymous?
Well, I know there's a certain responsibility on the client side to remain anonymous also, but if it was implemented in the Novosphere, I mean, would that be considered? Would anybody be able to see the conversation any possible way?
Well, it could be implemented by having you write your posts or write your messages to the blockchain. And I mean, sure, that's possible, but I don't really feel like a chat box is necessary when you have the entire form available. Okay, I mean, imagine it like this, right? Imagine the forum gets really popular. Reddit has 3.2 million posts per day, right? So let's say on average people are making, 3 posts. So let's call it 1 million users. So imagine 1 million people trying to talk in one chat box.
Yeah, that would be a bad idea.
So I think it's better to leave it broken down into subs, the way the forum already handles this.
Okay, very cool. That's the end of all the questions. I had a couple others, but they didn't really make much sense.
Okay, cool. I think that's about it then for this meeting. Unless you have anything you'd like to add.
I really want people to get out there and encourage people to use an immutable forum. It's very important. Even Bitcoin Bitcoin Talk, guys, it sucks, man. If you look at the history, they were even hacked many years ago, and they distributed everybody's usernames and profiles. I mean, just get off of it completely. Get everybody on the Novosphere. It's unique. There's no other immutable forum that I know of. How does it compare to Steemit, Ms. Fixie? Is that also immutable?
One sec. So Steemit is immutable, but I mean the reality of it is like everyone accesses Steem through their main website, right? Steemit.com. And Steem is not exactly the most friendly thing to self-host. So it's not that easy to self-host Steem. It's pretty beefy software, and you need some decent infrastructure to run a Steem node. So the main site, for example, I mean, this is true essentially for EOSform as well in this case, which is the main site can censor you at like, let's say, an API level, but the difference with EOSform is you can run your own node and you can easily access the form entirely locally without using eosform.org. And so that prevents any censorship from ever actually happening. And plus, it makes it really easy for you to set up your own site if you wanted to do that. So Steemit is pretty good in terms of censorship resistant, but I wouldn't say it's perfect in that regard.
There was something that turned me off about Steemit. When I first used it, I put a nice article on there, right? And it was a duplicate article, but it was my duplicate article, so I created it, right? And they found it with my real name on another website, and then they started attacking me, right? And they're like, "Oh, that's not yours. It belongs to this guy named Angelo." And I'm like, "Yeah, you ass, I'm Angelo." What the hell? And then but before they realized that it was me, and they made me prove it was me before they stopped bashing me. I mean, it wasn't a really good environment to be in, and I usually bounce very quickly when I see a toxic environment. So I wasn't very interested in using it anymore after that, honestly. Sure, it's pretty awesome, just like a lot of G's, and don't I would use it. I still use it. I'll throw articles up there randomly just to get some attention to specific projects. So nothing's ever out of the picture. Also, guys, if you have ideas to make this go more wild, I'm open. I'm here all the time. Send me a message, and we'll see if it works. I'm more than happy to even try to implement it. And if it costs a few bucks, I don't mind either. All right, guys?
All right, thanks everyone for coming out to this week's meeting. Hope you enjoyed listening, and hope you'll tune in again next week.